one nation under God. That's the challenge. And there's enough things that we agree on in America, and especially when we stop and talk about things like the child tax credit, most Americans are for that.
Will the senator yield?
Oh, gosh, well, I've been waiting for you, for crying out loud. Why didn't you interrupt me earlier?
You were on a roll.
Oh,
you
come
were
on.
on a roll. And
Come on, Senator.
Will you yield for a question?
I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
I don't know what kind of food you eat on that vegan diet of yours,
Yeah.
but I need to figure out more of that vegan diet. One place where we can and do care that unites us as a nation is the role of our nation's veterans, the heroes who have sacrificed for us. Although with this president, I guess he doesn't hold veterans in the same esteem. As someone who has bled for this nation, I guess I joined the ranks of the suckers and losers who have bled and died for this nation in the president's estimation. But I just wanted to start off by saying thank you again, Senator Booker, for all that you're doing as you hold the floor today, but also every other day, to underline the pain and damage Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing, not just to our country, but to middle-class Americans throughout our country. And tragically, that harm even extends to our nation's veterans who have sacrificed so much to protect this country and keep Americans safe, who should be shielded from this needless chaos and uncertainty. Senator Booker, I know you are well aware that this administration is firing more veterans than any other administration in modern history. It's been reported that this administration, in these first few months in office, has fired approximately 6,000 veterans from federal service across this country. This list of firing, especially at the VA, has resulted in operations for our veterans being canceled. We've seen reports of the Caregivers Hotline, a hotline that was set up to support the caregivers who provide medical caregiving to their loved ones who served and sacrificed and are now disabled. There are delays in that hotline being answered because Donald Trump fired all of these veterans. There are people who support the crisis hotline were also fired. I know this because some of them are my constituents and asked for help. I had one individual who'd served in the military for over 2 decades, did such a good job on the crisis hotline as a frontline person answering the phone, trying to prevent their brothers and sisters from the idea of suicide. They did such a good job that they were promoted to be a trainer. They were promoted to be a supervisor, which then made them probationary, and they were fired. We were able to get some of these people their jobs back. Some of them are still out there without their jobs. This is what Donald Trump and Elon Musk has already done. This does not help our nation's veterans. This does not help our nation's heroes. If anything, it is a betrayal to them. It's a betrayal, a cruel betrayal to the men and women who bravely answered the call to serve our country in uniform. A call that this president dodged 5 different times when he had the opportunity to serve. And our men and women in uniform came home from serving, and many of them chose to continue their service to our country as federal employees. How are Elon and Trump thanking these brave, selfless Americans? They're doing it by showing them the door and leaving them wondering how they'll be able to afford next week's groceries or next month's rent, forcing them to look for a new job. The senator from New Jersey and I are both working together to help our heroes get their jobs back, which is why I've introduced a Protect Veterans Jobs Act to reinstate all veterans who were wrongly fired from their federal jobs by Trump and Musk. It is a critical bill to help those who've already been fired, but according to recent reports, Trump and Musk are just getting started. From everything that we've seen, they are planning on firing another 80,000 VA employees, almost a third of whom are veterans themselves. So that's going to be another 25 veterans on a chopping block on top of the 6,000 who've already been fired. It is a complete betrayal from Trump and from Musk. Firing these VA employees will even harm veterans that Trump is not firing, because it's going to force them to wait longer to see their health care providers. It's going to make them wait longer to have their disability claims adjudicated. It is going to make them wait longer to have someone pick up their calls at the Veterans Crisis Line. It is going to make them wait even longer, and their loved ones wait even longer, to have their burial and funeral expense reimbursements request process, and so much more, all while the VA's backlog of unprocessed claims continues growing. I have another question for you, but first, for the senator from New Jersey, I was wondering if you could tell us if you have heard from your veterans who have been fired, if you have heard from your veterans who've seen their services delayed in New Jersey and around the country.
Yes, 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 yes. This is my veterans book. This is what I was reading from earlier, and everything you're saying is right, and it is such an insult. I read stories from our veterans. It's such an insult to the highest calling of our country to stand and serve as you did. As you did. Injured veterans, disabled veterans. I read an article about thousands of disabled veterans that want to serve their country, love this nation so much that they want to serve in humble jobs doing noble things. And how do we treat them? They say 83,000 people being laid off. A quarter of them are veterans from the VA itself, but this doesn't include veterans that do things for the Park Service and our national parks, veterans that do things for us in the Defense Department, veterans that do things for us across this country. I found in my state some of the greatest leaders I have met in my state are veterans who are still serving veterans. And then veteran entrepreneurs, you know the data, they're incredibly successful. They create to our economy. The VA is cutting not just veteran jobs, they're cutting contracts with veteran-owned businesses. I don't understand how you can say out of one side of your mouth, you honor and respect our veterans, which is not what our president's always said. Dear God, what he said about John McCain. I still remember John McCain is in a town hall with Barack Obama fighting fiercely to be the president of the United States, and somebody gets up and says that Barack Obama, as if it's an insult, it's not, is a Muslim or something, and he grabs the mic back and corrects her. One of his voters, he corrects her on national TV. This is wrong. He's a guy who loves his wife, Christian, loves his family. I mean, that is character and honor. Can you ever see that from our president now? And this is how wrong I was, and I want to admit, I've made mistakes, I've been wrong. I remember where I was when he said in his campaign that he's no hero, that people who are captured are not heroes. I said to the people that were with me, there goes his 15 minutes of fame. I thought that was the end of Trump. But somehow you could become president of the United States when you insult the veterans who serve. I want to read you, and I know you have another question, but can I read you? I don't know, John Lewis and John McCain, the two Johns are coming up a lot in my 20 hours. But I want to read you this. I want to read this when you were here because I read this, and let me all tell you, this is John McCain writing, let me all tell you what I think about the Pledge of Allegiance, our flag and our country. I want to tell you a story about when I was a prisoner of war. I spent 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. In the early years of our imprisonment, the North Vietnamese kept us in solitary confinement, or 2 or 3 to a cell. In 1971, the North Vietnamese moved us from these conditions of isolation into large rooms with as many as 30 to 40 men to a room. This was, as you can imagine, a wonderful change, and was a direct result of the efforts of millions of Americans, led by people like Nancy and Ronald Reagan on behalf of a few hundred POWs 10,000 miles from home. One of the men moved into my cell was Mike Christian. Mike came from a small town near Selma, Alabama. He didn't wear a pair of shoes until he was 13 years old. At 17, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy. He later earned a commission. He became a naval flying officer and was shot down and captured in 1967. Mike had a keen and deep appreciation for the opportunities this country and our military provide for people who want to work and want to succeed. The uniforms we wore in prison consisted of a blue short-sleeved shirt, trousers that looked like pajama trousers, and rubber sandals that were made out of automobile tires. I recommend them highly. My pair lasted my entire stay. As a part of the change in treatment, the Vietnamese allowed some prisoners to receive packages from home. And some of these packages were handkerchiefs, scarves, and other items of clothing. Mike got himself a piece of white cloth and a piece of red cloth and fashioned himself a bamboo needle. Over a period of a couple of months, he sewed the American flag on the inside of his shirt. Every afternoon before we had a bowl of soup, we would hang Mike's shirt on the wall of our cell and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I know that saying the Pledge of Allegiance may not seem the most important and meaningful part of our day now, our day in the Senate, but I can assure you that for those men in that Stark prison cell, it was indeed the most important and meaningful event of our day. One day, the Vietnamese searched our cell and discovered Mike's shirt with the flag sewn inside and removed it. That evening, they returned, opened the door of the cell, called for Mike Christian to come out, closed the door of the cell, and for the benefit of us all, beat Mike Christian severely for the next couple of hours. Then they opened the door of the cell and threw him back inside. He was not in good shape. We tried to comfort and take care of him as well as we could. The cell in which we lived had a concrete slab in the middle of which we slept, 4 naked light bulbs in each corner of the room. After things quieted down, I went to lie down and go to sleep. As I did, I happened to look into the corner of the room. Sitting there beneath that dim light bulb with a piece of white cloth, a piece of red cloth, another shirt and his bamboo needle was my friend, Mike Christian, sitting there with his eyes almost shut from his beating, making another American flag. He was not making the flag because it made Mike Christian feel better. He was making that flag because he knew how important it was for us to be able to pledge our allegiance to our flag and our country. Duty, honor, country. We must never forget those thousands of Americans who, with their courage, with their sacrifice, with their lives, made those words live for all of us. That is our veterans. That is you. That is you, my friend. And Trump is coming after them. Doge is coming after them. They're firing them right now. And are we silent, America? Are we silent when the bravest amongst us, the most honorable amongst us, the most noble amongst us are losing their jobs? Did you speak up when they came for American veterans? When they fired them for no good reason? What did you do? What did you say? I say no. I yield for a question while retaining the floor.
Thank you for what you've said. John McCain was a true hero. He said the same thing to me when I first met him. I do have a question for you, which will come later, but I thought I would tell you the story of how I met John McCain. I was recently wounded. Within weeks of being able to finally sit up for the first time, I was in physical therapy, and Senator McCain came and visited us. And the nurses and occupational therapists and physical therapists came running in and said, "Senator McCain, this is Captain Duckworth. She's a hero just like you," and said to me, "You're a hero like Senator McCain. You were both shot down." And Senator McCain looked at me and said in that voice of his, "Didn't take no hero to fly into a missile. The good pilots don't get shot down." And I knew then and there that I really liked him, because he was right. The real heroes were the buddies who carried me out of that field in Iraq. The real heroes are the sergeant in the rescue bird that carried me out and has to live with the post-traumatic stress. The real heroes are all the men and women who survived and came home and need the care that they have rightfully earned. The care that we're providing with them with the PACT Act, a bill that you supported, a bill that you spoke up for. Even while members, our colleagues across the aisle, many of them said it was too expensive. And at a time when we should be expanding the PACT Act, when we should be recognizing more of the illnesses and injuries that came out of service around burn pits and toxic substances, you have a president who is cutting the VA, who wants to cut those jobs, who want to go after our veterans' benefits, whom, just like Elon Musk has said, sees veterans as a people with their hands out. We don't have our hands out. We're simply asking for what this country promised us. Where were you, Mr. President? Where were you, Elon, when this country asked for someone to serve? When this country asked, who amongst you will leave your family, leave your friends, leave your neighbors, and put on her colors and defend her? Not for your mom, not for your dad, not for your family members, but for strangers who will never know your name, who will never know your sacrifice. Who among you will do that? Thank God that from Lexington and Concord, from Iwo Jima, from Ia Valley, from Kandahar, from Fallujah, there were Americans who stood up and said, I will. I will defend this great nation. I will wear her colors with pride. And all we have to do as a nation is live up to one tiny little percentage of that sacrifice that they made. Let them have the benefits that they've earned. And yet Donald Trump and Elon Musk are cutting those benefits. The biggest predictor of veterans' homelessness is not post-traumatic stress disorder. It is not a health condition. The biggest predictor of veterans' homelessness is lack of employment, not having a job. That begins the spiral downwards for veterans that ends up with them becoming homeless. And I will tell everyone in these chambers and in this nation, we are all dishonored when a veteran must lay their head down on the very same streets that he or she defended to sleep that night. We are all dishonored. The VA has done tremendous work to fight veterans' homelessness, and that has been a bipartisan effort. And these cuts that are costing veterans their jobs are going to start some of those veterans, unfortunately, on that path to homelessness. These cuts are going to mean those veterans' homelessness programs that will prevent our veterans from becoming unhoused, those programs will not be able to take care of all the veterans of the demand. I'm already seeing it. I spent this past weekend in Missouri at the Cochran VA Medical Center, hearing about the challenges that they're facing. They need to expand. They don't need to shrink. They said there's going to be another 25,000 veterans moving into the area. They actually have to expand their services. And yet Elon Musk, enabled by Donald Trump, is cutting veterans' jobs, veterans' benefits, because according to them, veterans aren't heroes. We are suckers and losers. Well, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. I am sure that my colleague from New Jersey knows that firing 80,000 employees from the Department of Veterans Affairs wouldn't just cause longer delays for veterans, it will doom our VA's ability to process claims, that the influx of claims under the PACT Act, a law that is helping ensure veterans who were exposed to toxins while serving can get the care that they have earned, with more than 1 million claims already approved in a short time since it's become law. I can't think of a single good reason to hurt so many veterans. And I'll just ask the senator from New Jersey, can you think of any reasons?
Oh, God. I'm very moved by your comments. I want to say that from John McCormick to Jack Reed, the Senate has a good number of people who serve this nation who answered the call. They should all get our honor and respect. Senator Blumenthal served, and he has a son, Navy SEAL. We should have a reverence for those people because a lot of them didn't make it back. A lot of people didn't make it back, and a lot of people who came home with horrible wounds, visible and invisible. We should all be ashamed of the veterans that are committing suicide. We should all be ashamed of veteran homelessness. We have the capacity We are a great enough nation to help them. But the ones that didn't come back, they watch over us. They look down upon this nation. I want to read you one more thing, because was raised by parents who could not think they could. They really worried raising me in an affluent town in a beautiful home that I would not recognize how extraordinarily privileged I was. My dad used to say to me, "Boy, don't walk around this house like you hit a triple. You were born on third base." My dad would say things to me like, "Boy, don't sit at this table and not realize that you drink deeply from wells of freedom and liberty that you did not dig. You eat from banquet tables of blessings prepared for you by your ancestors. You must metabolize those blessings, not so that you could pay your ancestors back, but that you could pay it forward." My dad, when I got degrees from Stanford, Oxford, and Yale, said, "Boy, you got more degrees in the month of July, but you ain't hot." Life ain't about the degrees you get, it's about the service you give. And so McCormick and Reed and Tammy, I'm here because of people that died for this country, that stormed beaches in Normandy in this country. They were at Iwo Jima for this country. They liberated Nazi concentration camps for this country. They are buried. I've seen their burials. In Thailand, fields full of American soldiers who never made it home. Every time I see one of those, I get overcome with emotion. I can't think about, when I look at their ages, 18, 19, 20, 21. And so let me read this, and I'm going to compose myself, because you got me all emotional, Tammy. I thought you were my friend. This is a poem written by Billy Rose. You know it probably. It's called "The Unknown Soldier." And just listen to the words and let them echo and see if we are living up to them, if our president lives up to them, the most powerful person in the world or the richest man in the world. Are they respecting? There's a graveyard near the White House where the unknown soldier lies, and the flowers there are splendid with the tears from a mother's eyes. I stood there not long ago with roses for the brave, and I suddenly heard the voice speak out of the grave. "I am the unknown soldier," the spirit voice began, "and I think I have the right to ask some questions man to man. Are my buddies taken care of? Was their victory so sweet? Is that big reward you offered selling pencils on the street? Did they really win the freedom they battled to achieve? Do you still respect that croix de guerre above that empty sleeve? Does a gold star in the window now mean anything at all? I wonder how my old girl feels when she hears the bugle call. And that baby who sang, 'Hello, Central, give me no man's land,' can they replace her daddy with a military band? I wonder if the profiteers have satisfied their greed. I wonder if a soldier's mother ever is in need. I wonder if the kings who planned it all are really satisfied. They played their game of checkers, and 11 million died. I am the unknown soldier, and maybe I died in vain. But if I were alive and my country called, I'd do it all over again." Thank you, Senator. Every time I see you, I have such reverence and gratitude that I get to serve alongside of you. I didn't serve in the military alongside of you like those courageous soldiers, like those people who carried you at risk to themselves, people who saved your life, the people that helped you in rehab, the people that empowered you to get back on your feet and run for one of the highest offices in the land, and then you serve here with distinction because you don't forget who helped you get here.
Just take care of my buddies.
Exactly. And my dad, who's in heaven with a lot of the other good folks from American history, I don't know what he'd think of his son, but I know he'd be proud of you. All right, let's talk about the economy. Christopher Coons.
Will the senator yield for